Hello and welcome to the Inspiring Life School podcast. This is your host, Frances Vidakovic, and on this podcast, I'll be sharing with you the most valuable strategies to live your one wildly beautiful and most precious life. Because this is it, my friend. In case you haven't guessed, when it comes to life, there's no rewind or pause button that exists. They say that the way that you spend your days is the way that you spend your life. So my one and only goal here is to help you stop wasting your time, stop holding yourself back in life, stop experiencing non-stop negative mind chatter, stop just dreaming without doing, and start living life fearlessly instead, with more purpose, focus, and intention. I sincerely want you to live life in a way that when you come to the end of it, you know deep down in your heart that you 100% gave it your all, flaws and all. This podcast is not about doing life perfectly. Instead, it is about experiencing and living life with more clarity and courage and truly appreciating this precious adventure that we are so blessed to be on. So if you're with me here today, it's time to stop spinning in circles, get off the hamster wheel for good, put your hands back on the steering wheel of your life, and finally start living life in a way that you won't later regret. With that being said, let's dive on in. Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Inspiring Life School podcast. I'm your host, Frances Vidakovic, and I'm so excited to be sharing with you an episode today, which is all about connecting the dots. And this particular phrase, connecting the dots, comes from a really famous commencement speech by Steve Jobs, and he delivered it back in June 2005. So you have to go and Google it. It's called the Stanford Commencement Speech. Steve Jobs gave it, and I'm just going to share with you just a little portion of his speech. Now, the whole speech is in itself amazing and will really make sense and bring this quote to life. But even still, let me just share with you this tiny little portion of the speech, which is all about connecting the dots. So what he said was, you cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. So you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. You have to trust in something, your gut, your destiny, life, karma, whatever it is. And this approach has never let me down and it has made all the difference in my life. And in this speech, he shares like these really interesting stories where he was so sure that these, from the outset, these stories look like he was doomed to be a failure in life. And yet, even still, later on down the track, looking backwards, once these events had taken place, he could see that they were in perfect synchronicity with his life, and they were the perfect experiences for him to have in order to help him grow and evolve and take him to that next step forward. So what I'm going to do now is share with you two really interesting stories that I feel like they encapsulate this, connecting the dots philosophy. And while you're listening to it, I want you to think back on your own life and all those experiences that you thought were so terrible, and how did that potentially give you the strength and resilience that you required, that you needed to go through in order to take you to the next step and to guide you down the right path. Now, I'm pretty sure that I've shared these stories at some point, after over 300 episodes. I probably talked about it on the Everything Happens for a Reason episode, but this is I want you to approach it from a different light, okay? From the light of there are dots that are taking place in your life and that they can be connected later on down the track to actually make you realize that yes, my life is divinely happening exactly the way that it is supposed to. Everything that I'm experiencing is for me as opposed to against me. So keep that in mind while I share with you these two stories. So the first story is called the Two Traveling Angels story, and I just want you to reflect on it while I read it to you, because I feel like it's going to potentially change the way you think about all the things that have happened to you in your life, because life definitely throws us some curveballs at times that we don't love, and all we can try to do is make the best with the cards that we've been dealt with. So this story is going to help you think differently about all the crappy stuff that you might have experienced or that you're going to continue to experience in your future. Okay, there's going to be lots of messy dots in your future. And so I feel like it's to approach it from a different perspective. Like I said before, these things are happening for me or rather than against me. So I'm going to just share the story now, and it goes like this. Two traveling angels stopped to spend the night in the home of a really wealthy family. Now, the family was quite rude to them, and they refused to let the angels stay in the mansion's guest room. Instead, they were given this really little crappy small space in the cold basement. And as the angels made their bed on the hard floor, the older angel saw a hole in the wall, and she set to work to repair it. And when the younger angel asked why, the older angel replied, "Things aren't always what they seem." So the next night they continued on, and the pair came to rest at the house of a really poor but very kind farmer and his wife. And after sharing what little food they had, the couple actually let the angel sleep in their own bed just so that they could get a really good night's rest. And when the sun came up the next morning, the angels found that the farmer and his wife were in tears because they only had one cow And that one cow, then the milk was like their sole source of income, but it lay dead in the field. And the younger angel was furious because she was so angry. And she asked the older angel, how could you have let this happen? That first man who had everything, he was so wealthy and yet he treated us so poorly. You helped him. And then we come across this second family who had so little and yet they were willing to share everything with us. And you let that cow die. But things aren't always what they seem, the older angel replied. And then she explained, when we stayed in the basement of that mansion, I noticed that there was a pot of gold stored in that hole in the wall. And since that owner was so obsessed with greed and unwilling to share his good fortune with us, with anyone, I sealed that wall so he would never be able to find it. And then last night, as we slept in the farmer's bed, the angel of death came for his wife. I gave him the cow instead. Things aren't always what they seem. This is just something for you to consider, that when things don't always work out the way that you hope they would, maybe, just maybe, the experience has an underlying purpose that you might just not have worked out what that answer was. Like, you don't have to know it yet, but you're going to know it in retrospect, okay? It's all going to make sense to you later on down the track. If you are willing to consider that this is true, if you're willing to go digging. Hey my friend, I just want to pop in and share with you the most amazing news that Inspiring Life Academy is finally open for enrollment. So inside the Academy, you are going to find every single course that I've ever created in my business to help you manage your mind, time, and life in a way that finally gets you the results you truly want. And I'm not kidding when I say it includes literally everything. There is over 50 courses and coaching roadmaps included inside with a total value of over $3,000. So to access this membership today at a super low founding members price, please make sure to check out inspiringmumlife.com/academy. That's inspiringmumlife.com/academy. Now, I have no idea how long the doors to the Academy will stay open, so if you're curious, I encourage you to check it out today, and I can't wait to see you inside. Now for story number 2. So this is also going to make you change the way that you see both your past and your future. And it's a story called Maybe. It was written by Christopher Dines, and it goes like this. Once upon a time, there was an old farmer. Yeah, it's another farmer who worked on his land for over 40 years. And one morning while he was walking to his stable, he noticed that his only horse, had run away. And his neighbors came to visit him, and sympathetically they said to the farmer, that is such bad luck. Maybe, the farmer replied. And the following morning, the horse returned, but it brought with it 3 other wild horses. And the neighbors were so excited. They're like, oh my gosh, that is such good luck. Maybe, the farmer replied. So the next day, the following afternoon, his son tried to ride one of those wild, untamed horses, and he was thrown off and it caused him to break his leg. And so the neighbors came again and they tried to show their sympathy, and they said to the farmer, that is such bad luck, so unfortunate. Maybe, answered the farmer. And then the next day, the military officials came to the farmer's village to draft the young men into the army to fight in the new war. And observing that the farmer's son had a broken leg, they didn't draft him into the war. And so the neighbors congratulated him on his good luck. And the farmer calmly replied, maybe. Now, I want you to consider these 2 scenarios, these 2 stories, in conjunction with the quote that I shared with you from Steve Jobs, and just that particular phrase, that particular philosophy, all about connecting the dots. What if all the things that are happening to you right now in your life are playing out in the exact way that they are supposed to? What if a reason that you didn't get the job that you had your heart set on getting was because there was an even better job waiting for you just around the corner? What if the reason that your child woke up late and made you super late to an appointment was so that you could avoid a potential accident? And what if the reason that you've maybe gone through something traumatic was to prepare you for something special later on in life that required you to be strong, that required you to be resilient, compassionate, and real? Now, this is not to say that, that it's fantastic that bad things happen to good people and that it wouldn't be a million times better that we didn't go through those experiences, but they happen nonetheless. Good things happen to bad people, bad things happen to good people, and that's just the way life works. And rather than sitting there and wishing that particular things didn't happen, what if we're able to embrace the lessons that we got from that experience? Because the experience happened, we can't change the past, but what if you could learn something from that experience that you went through? What if there's a gem hidden in that rough that you potentially won't discover until after the fact? And like I said before, I know it doesn't explain away or justify terrible things happening to good people, but that isn't the point of the story or the point of this podcast episode. The point is simply to help you shift your perspective from someone who, is maybe feels like a victim to someone who stands in her power, someone who actively looks to see if there's something to be learned from every experience, to see how those dots are connecting. What if this is maybe true? If you were to take a moment now just to think about all those experiences that you've had in your life, the ones that have taken you to this moment right now where you're listening to me talk to you about connecting the dots, can you see how your dots have connected? This is something that you can't do ahead of time. You can only do it when you're looking backwards. It's like Steve Jobs says, you can't connect the dots looking forward. You need to do so looking backwards. And I love how he said you have to trust that the dots will somehow connect in your future. Trust, okay? Trust. You have to trust in something, he said. Your gut, your destiny, life, karma, whatever. What I would discover, just from having faith in that one sentence, trusting that dots will somehow connect to you in the future, makes it easier for us to show up with confidence whenever we face an obstacle or a hurdle in the present moment. Because we might not know now how it's going to connect, but in the future, it will all somehow make sense. So that is it for today's episode, my friend. You know I love and appreciate you all, and take care until next time. Much love, my friend. Thank you so much for listening to the Inspiring Life School podcast. I really appreciate you allowing me to be a part of your life. If you'd love to stay in touch, please know that you can always find me on Instagram at Vidakovic, or you can visit my website, inspiringmumlife.com, where you can sign up and receive so many amazing freebies that I've created just for you to help you implement all my teachings into practice. There you'll also find all my online courses, resources and programs that I've created to help you up-level your life in seriously the simplest way possible, so that you can ultimately create for yourself a life that feels simpler, lighter, and allows you to show up in a way that you love as your best and most authentic version of yourself. Now remember, this podcast is all about not just dreaming but also doing, because to create true sustainable change in your life, you need to be willing to do things differently. And that's what I'm here to support you to do every single step along the way, so that you too can begin to live your one wild and precious life with less stress, less overwhelm, less drama, and instead with zero regrets. Finally, if this podcast resonates with you at all and you appreciate the content, I would absolutely love for you to show your support by leaving me a review on Apple Podcasts. I'm on a mission to help more people wake up to the preciousness of life and to help them live their days with more intention and purpose, and your review will help make this goal of mine possible. Well, once again, thank you so much. I have loved spending this time with you, and I look forward to connecting with you again. I am Vidakovic, and you have been listening to the Inspiring Life School podcast.